to find the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. Isn't that funny? I just finished making the um, there's actually a couple of sessions in the Law of One where they talk about Tesla, and the first one I think is session 12, and I was making like the slides for it. Tesla was the man.
Tesla is the man.
Tesla was a wanderer.
Yeah, he was. I will say he was a star seed sent to humanity to do something, and he definitely done.
Ra actually said that. That's what he was sent here for. And
yeah, Tesla was the amazing man.
It's funny. I'll get ahead of the presentation, but Don was asking him, like, what was Tesla's purpose? And Ra said it was to bring people out of darkness. So of course, Don was like, what do you mean by darkness? Like, the first thing we're thinking is metaphysical, poetically. And then Ra was like, no, we mean just in literal darkness, like get you out of the stupid, nights so you can have light at day, at night.
Yeah.
So that was his purpose, which, I mean, when you think about it, it makes a lot of sense because, and Ra explains further, like he says, by freeing people from darkness, you can have more productivity. And I mean, he didn't go into explaining what like free energy was, but it was like liberating people from the need to work only a day, and they can also work at night, but not work in the sense that we know it, but contemplation, and other things. You can have a lot more. I mean, I guess from Ra's perspective is like so many other planets that have used, free energy to improve their civilization. And, that's what he meant, like how freeing ourselves from the darkness of having to go to sleep because it's dark just kind of limits the amount of progression that we can have in society. So I thought it was funny. That just, small part where he's like, what do you mean by, darkness? He's like, no, I mean like literal darkness, not, Tesla wasn't here to enlighten you.
He also was.
Yeah, of course. But I mean,
we can get into that later because that's deep.
That is.
Yeah.
So
we're back.
Yeah, we are back. I'm glad to be back.
Yeah, it's good to see you again.
Yes.
I miss you.
Same. I told you look a lot more beautiful.
Thank you. That's good. It's not the sun because we don't have any sun here. I don't know what it is. I guess it's the process and the energies right now, and just, I don't know, going through everything.
Yeah, whatever it is. We do have some sun here. I actually got pretty tan. I gotta get more. I was thinking about this, like, and this is probably relative to everything that we talk about, but the sun brings it's funny because a lot of people, they got scared with like the cancer, the sun, gives cancer and all this stuff. And, I'm not telling anybody to go get, I am telling people, go get some sunlight.
Yeah.
Seriously. I mean, we need sunlight, and it's just high frequency foods are, we know it's vegetables and, fresh, organic, blah, blah, blah. But it's because all of those are getting the energy from the sun, and it's the first conversion of the sunlight, right? So understanding obviously that plants don't grow from the ground up, they grow from, the top, which is, the sunlight. They convert that into matter, right? Through their processes. That's their source of energy. So we're eating pure light, or not pure, but the first conversion of light. And that energy we are consuming and we're eating. That's why, fresh, not cooked vegetables are the best, because we can absorb that energy. And in the same way, blocking ourselves from the sun is preventing our skin from nourishing from the sunlight.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same thing, in terms of like the quantum mechanics of how we interact with energy and matter. This is what's happening. We are preventing a lot of processes. We know it's vitamin D. Oh, vitamin D, that's what the sun is good for. Yeah, it's the biggest thing, but there are many more things happening at the atomic level when we are exposed to light. And I'll share something with you that I think is just fascinating. Let me see, you're gonna like this.
Bring it.
So I was talking about Ra recently, and this is on a complete different session. I think this was in session 60 something. And he's explaining like how in 4 density, you get to have a different relationship with the sun. Like here, we have to have the sun. Without the sun, we don't have this body and everything else. Like we know that. Yeah. And it's common sense, without the sun, we die, the planet, freezes, whatever. And us as being have a relationship with the sun. In 4th density, we have a more close relationship with the sun. And from there, you kind of have a different communication with it, with what he calls the logos. We can call the spirit of the sun. But then as you go up in densities, you can actually have a deeper connection with the sun. Now, when you're in 6th density, you can actually reside inside the sun or the star, because you are of a similar frequency or vibration of the sun, and you have a light body as opposed to just like a physical body. But the cool thing that I want to share is that people or entities, higher densities, and remember, 6th density is where our higher self is living. Like that's where our higher self is residing, in 6th density. So you can go and reside inside a star. Now, if you are living in the star, he talks about the sexual energy transfer that happens there, and that the offspring or the results of that mating, if you will, of like the 2 entities that provide this energy, the sexual energy transfer, comes out as light. Part of that, like it's called a byproduct, comes out as light, and we in 3rd density receive it. So you're basically getting like the offspring of sexual energies being merged in the sun by 6th density beings. Isn't that cool?
Yeah, that's pretty cool. That's pretty sexy too.
Huh?
So we're just like bathing in 6th density energy,
Yes.
sexual energy.
Yep.
Wow.
Part of the light. I mean, there are other parts, because remember, the sun is alive inside. So
yeah,
Ra explains like some of the light that you're getting, and remember, is homogeneous. So yeah, you're getting all of that. There's a lot more in the sun that's happening, of course, but part of it, like some of the rays that you are receiving. When I read that, I was like, oh my God, that's amazing. Like just looking at the sun now, it's like it's not this big ball of fire. So much stuff. I think
then
so.
We just need to like eye gazing at the sun. I mean, I just talked with my friend the other day that people have always said, if you look to the sun, you get blind, or you need these glasses when the moon do this and the sun does this. But I actually don't believe it. I believe that if you look at the sun, something happens in your eyes, some healings. Not that I say I recommend it, but some people is actually doing sun gazing or not. I never use sunscreen because I want the sun to like kiss me, because it does something to our body and our energy system. And I think that some part of that is a little bit corrupted in our society with regards to sun. I don't think it's so scary or so like it's not the enemy.
No. I mean, you just said it, like you don't put that sunblock stuff because
never. No.
What's it doing? It's blocking you from UV rays. UV rays are the reason why we want the sun. Yes. In fact, there was an experiment done in. I mean, this is so old. It's probably like 50 years ago or so, and they changed the. I think it was the frequency of the UV light that they were shining on a cell. and I think it was say it's 380 micro, whatever it is. But the point is that they changed it, and the cell, got damaged and it started dying. Then they did the same, to the same cell, but they reverted the frequency, and they put it to whatever it was, and it started healing it. And that's the frequency of the sun. Mm-hmm. So they realized that UV light specifically is the one that causes cancer when it's manipulated, but not from the sun. So the sun has the correct frequency that we need on our skin. And like I said, all the processes, so, but it's not the sun itself, it's the UV light. So if you're protecting against UV, it's like, you're drinking ayahuasca without, the inhibitor.
Yeah.
You're not doing anything,
Yeah.
So
exactly.
That's
interesting. But there is something more interesting. I mentioned it for you, and I have been thinking a lot about this subject for the last couple of days, and it has partly something to do with the sun, because the sun also represents the light, but it has also something to do with the dark and what we perceive as the dark, and how we embrace the dark, and how we make this contradiction between light and dark. I mean, a lot of people is talking about being light workers, being light beings, and all these things. And what I have been thinking about the last couple of days is that, first of all, I didn't come from the light. I came from the dark. And second of all, I'm not only a light being or a light worker, I'm also a dark being and a dark worker. And why is it that we are focusing so much on the light and so less on the dark? Like, I have really been writing a lot about it, downloading a lot about it, and just thinking a lot about it, because I have a feeling that there is a missing piece here. We are worshiping the sun, the light, but what about everything else that we can't see, which is 99% of the world?
Well, let's define, like I said, we were talking about darkness in terms of the unknown, right?
Yeah.
So
because we can't see it.
I guess, people are over eager to just jump into the positive side of everything.
Yeah.
Right. So it goes to, I mean, people will do what they want to do. I guess the contrast that we're seeing is that there's not much embracing of the darkness that exists outside of our own darkness, right? We're not talking about our internal stuff, or are we?
I'm talking about everything. I mean, there is just I'm just experienced this very denial of the dark. And I'm not talking about the dark like the evil and all that dark, because that's not dark, that's evil. I'm talking about the true darkness, like where bacteria live, where we grow from, where a seed come up from the ground. I mean, these dark forces that pushes and manifest throughout and through in light us as species, like that powerful force that actually created all that. I mean, we talk about light, which is the manifested part of us. But what about the darkness, like that true, real dark force that really created this whole plot?
Well, I know it as, I mean, I'll give you my take on it, and you can pick it apart as much as you want, and we'll discuss it. But David Wilker calls it the source field. I call it the source, God, the origin, whatever.
Yeah,
it's the invisible force that's causing everything. And I mean, it's interesting because that's where everything comes from. Everything.
Yeah.
Everybody, and where we go to exactly. And fro. That's the invisible force. Everything that comes from there, and I mean, I guess the scientific description of all this stuff is, those the natural forces that guide all the motion in the universe,
Yes.
every motion. And with motion, I'm not talking about planets, circling around a star or, just big stuff. I'm talking about the movement, the geometrical pattern movement of the atoms, which are not, particles themselves. They're just waves and energy moving in specific patterns. Now, all of that, it's like the guiding force of the laws of the universe, basically. That is unseen to us. We cannot see it. We cannot measure it. And that's why we have so many issues, in quantum physics to, merge it with relativity.
Yeah.
Because we don't have the way to merge them both and have them, unless we think about something, like we said, the source field or the origin, God, what people call God, that those laws, those patterns were created for a reason. Protons and electrons behave in a specific way because they were told to behave that way in specific patterns. And in the same way, that's where we go through the densities of consciousness. Actually, it's the same thing. Yeah. Because everything starts as energy manifested, and I think that's where you're getting at. Like, we are looking only at the superficial level of what energy is manifested as visible light and, our manifestation, which is okay, because that's what we're here for, just to experience this visible reality. But it definitely, at least to ponder upon it, I think it's cool to go into, that space of realize, like I did it yesterday. I went to the park and I was looking at everything, and I'm looking at the grass blades just moving because of the wind, and I'm thinking, like, all of this stuff has such complexity coming from the same source. Yeah. Everything is manifesting into, one. It's not coming from the ground. It's coming from, what we call time space, and we are all, I wish I could describe this because it's so beautiful, but it's like two planes.
Yeah.
Right.
I agree. Yeah, it is. And I think it's hard to describe because it's undescribable, but it is. I think it's also because we haven't trained our brain to wrap it around this concept of this energy field that is all around us all the time, because we can't see it. But I guess if we could see it, I've tried ayahuasca, and sometimes when you do the ayahuasca, there is like geometry everywhere. And I guess that's our world. Like, there is sacred geometry and waves and frequencies and vibration and energy everywhere. We just can't see it. And that is the space that I'm super interested in right now. And I thought yesterday, how can I harvest this dark energy? Because I know how to harvest the light because I can see it. And it's like the easy way for me these days. But how can I harvest this dark force, this dark energy? How can I harvest ether energy? And yeah, I think that's super interesting nowadays, because it seems like that's the next step for humanity, to harvest that, because that's also the soul level of life, to go into that space. And I think it's the most interesting thing right now to figure out. But how, I haven't yet, but I want to figure it out. Because as you say, it's so hard to explain, like how to explain something so unexplainable.
If you do, let me know.
Right?
But this is all right. This is actually amazing, because this is the kind of passion that we should have in contemplation and meditation, I believe. Because think about it. We can use our energy and our focus to contemplate and meditate upon this physical reality. How boring is that? You know what I mean? Like, yeah. I mean, yes, you can use that, fine, but you should be exploring this other dimension of reality. Mm-hmm. And to be honest, that's why we are attracted to certain compounds, like, psychedelics in general, and anything that alters our consciousness, because we are seeking that. We're disconnected from it. Shamans have been saying for a long time that our only problem is that we have severed the connection to our spirit.
Yeah.
And that's what we would yearn for, because we don't have an idea of what we're dealing with, and we're very invested in this physical reality.
Yeah.
So that darkness that you're talking about, that, and especially when you talk about ayahuasca, because when I explain psychedelics to people, and what am I going to experience, what is it, it's the same as anybody who can do transcendental meditation, breath work, just sleeping does the same thing, near-death experience, and of course death itself. Like, there are so many ways that you can explore that other part of the universe.
Yeah.
To me, it's useful to a point, because it's very complex, and it's really hard to get information from there and bring it here. Try to explain truly an experience of ayahuasca. Can you? No. So if you can't explain it, can you explain it to yourself? That's what takes you, months and probably years, depending on how far you are from it, to kind of grasp. So, it's and you can do this every day too. Like, I do it in the morning when I do my breathing exercises, especially the DMT one. Oh my God. This is actually pretty cool. When you like stand up really quick and you get like this, head rush or blood rush in your head, and you feel like dizzy or whatever. It could be lifting weights, or before I used to be afraid of it, because I'm, oh my God, I'm going to faint or something. Now I enjoy it, because I know I'm shifting out of this reality for a brief moment.
Yeah.
So I just kind of enjoy it. And then I'm a little sad when I come back. So, but you're facing into that reality. It's just that it's hard to explore.
Yeah.
It's really hard to explore.
And
that's all we're doing.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's super interesting. And it just fascinated me so much. And now it's almost 2 years since I took ayahuasca last time. And I first figure out now what everything that I saw in all of my trips, actually, what all these things were. And it's 2 years ago, and first now I understand the geometric pattern. It's the universal language that is being shown in that trip, and it's like geometry, it's numbers, it's vibrations, it's all these beautiful things. So that's why I think it's so hard to use it with words. First of all, our language is shit. It's nothing that it has been. But also, it's not a language that is talked with words. Universe don't use the words we use. They use so much more. And I think that's why it's so hard to explain, and also to get to know it, because we need to speak another language, speak energy fluently, or geometric fluently.
I think, and the biggest example I have is Terence McKenna. When it comes to somebody who can express the energy of what he calls, or used to call, the psychedelic experience.
Yeah.
He was obviously a big promoter of the psychedelics, but you can see in his rhetoric the way he expressed the feeling and the message and the information from that field to this one.
Yeah.
It didn't have to do much with the visions, which were really cool, the messages, particular messages that he got, and all that. It's just an application of knowing who we are within this reality.
Yeah.
And that's the key thing.
Yeah.
Yes, as children, we would enjoy, the toys that we were given, in this experience. And again, I'm not talking about psychedelics only. I'm talking about every single method that you can use. Dream analysis is one of them. That's a huge one that I would love to get into, and I'm trying my best, because I've been completely severed from the idea of dreams and everything from my past. But dream analysis is a big one. Breath work is another one that brings me to that threshold every morning. I do kriyas, I do a bunch of stuff, and I'm like all, pumped for my DMT, breath work, because it brings me to the unknown and into that, even if it's just for a couple of seconds. it makes me question so much about, who I am and the
Yeah.
things that I feel and everything. So I think that's the best use you can make out of that, that you're calling darkness, the unseen, is just to question again who we are and what we are in this reality.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing. And like I said, Terence McKenna does a great job at explaining it, in so many ways, especially about the idealistic behavior of humans and the dogmatic behavior, and just our idea of who we are and what we ought to be, and all this stuff. You just start questioning, and you know that you are nobody and you have no idea of anything. So why are you so attached to anything? Ice cream,
Yeah.
a car, a girlfriend or boyfriend, like that's the question that I love from the psychedelic or the unseen realm of time space.
Yeah. But I think there is two poles in that, because in that trip it says that you are nothing. And that's kind of the universe that says that. But then nature say to you, but you are also everything. So like it's like this nothingness and everything coming together in these two dimensions, because I think it's like the fourth dimension where you're everything, and the fifth and sixth dimension where you realize that you're actually nothing more than energy. But that's not in the nothingness. But yeah, it's very it's complex and simple in the same time. I love this subject.
Yeah. Well, I would see it as, remember, there's a reason why we're having this experience.
Yeah.
And that is the source of our search, or the objective of our search, rather. We need to find first of all, like, what's our main purpose here? That should be the driving force of our life every day. Anything that stands between us and that purpose, it's an obstacle.
Yeah.
And it's there for a reason. I mean, that's what we call catalyst. So it's fine, but we need to find that, say, our purpose as we know it is to grow spiritually. Okay, great. That's easier said than done. But how do we achieve it? Why is it that we are incarnated in this, body to experience the, and I think this is where the idea that we are nothing in this reality, the perception that we are nothing, which is a good thing to have, comes in handy.
Yeah.
Ego is the driving force.
Mm-hmm.
Ego is the driving force, and that's what's creating the separation of us, right?
Yeah.
And ego is just making you feel like, you are.
Yeah.
You actually aren't.
Yeah.
So that's where, the idea of you are nobody, it's useful. I'll give you one example that I thought about the other day. There is a suicidal person, and there is a enlightened Buddhist or a Buddha, right? What do they have in common? One or the other, they both say that they are nobody.
Yeah.
They both say they're nobody. And funny enough, they're both seeking the same thing, death.
Yeah. True.
They're both at the threshold of death.
True.
Suicidal, and this one. But this one, the suicidal, thinks that he's nobody and he's disconnected from everything, whereas this one knows that he's nobody and everything at the same time.
Yeah.
So that's the thing that we need to get at, that we're nobody, but at the same time that we're everything. So when we're here, we just have that realization and just play with it, because you are a super powerful being.
Yeah, that's really a good analogy, that one.
Yeah, I thought about it and I said, like, that's again, they're both going over the threshold, or very close to the threshold of dying, basically, or which is, it's a harsh word for us humans. Oh, death, my God.
I know, it's a misunderstood word, but we have talked about that before.
Yes, for sure.
Like, can you imagine if this is just a little jump, but if we were just taught from kids off that we already from kids off started to die. And our only job here was to grow and then get rebirth, not die, but rebirth. If we could use that word, nobody would like live in this way. That could just be an amazing world where death is not in it in that way we think of it. Because there is no ending and there is no beginnings.
Well,
it's an illusion.
For anybody that's, that likes video games or I love having like video games analogies because they describe a lot.
Every time.
Yeah. Listen, I grew up with video games, and I play video games up until probably like 3-4 years ago. I forgot. Big time video gamer. But I love it because there is a character that you create, and you are its higher self, right? Mm-hmm. So with that analogy itself, I can play so many things of the spiritual realm here because your character has no idea that I exist or you exist, and you're playing it, and you're making it go through hard situations.
Yeah.
You are putting them to a hell, challenge, and he has no idea, or she has no idea. They don't know why this is all happening to them, but they keep going, and they just trust. Now imagine if your character stops like just paying attention to your commands and your keyboard and your mouse or your controller. What happens? Your character starts suffering more, and you have no connection over it. You have no control over it. Mm-hmm. So, these all of the things that are happening, even death, when they die, you have like extra lives, and you always have lives, right? You always have this. They reincarnate again. They have no idea. They just come back again. They're like, okay, back to my starting point or my resurrection point, whatever video game you're playing, So it's the same thing, but it's by design. By design, they shouldn't know that we exist. They may have an idea, maybe,
Yeah.
But we play it that way, and that's how we work in this reality. But talking about death, what I was exposed to today? No. Have you heard about like the light at the end of the tunnel?
Yeah.
When you're dying.
Yeah.
And that is a trap.
Not the trap. I don't know.
That's pretty interesting. I've heard it a couple of times already that when you...
I think I know why, actually. But yeah, talk.
No, tell me what you know.
Well, like when I have... as I also talked about earlier, what I have been tried to figure out the most these days and these couple of months is light and dark, and not in this, like, it is a spiritual way, but it's also, I would say, kind of spirit science, if you can say that. So I needed to figure out, okay, what is light actually, and what is dark actually? And light is the manifest world. Light is, as we talk about, the physical world. So light represents the physical world. And if you go through death, if you die, stepping into the light would be you being desperate of going back to the physical world again, and like, hurry up, going back to the physical world, instead of like stay in that, in that energy where you accomplished a new level of your own consciousness. So stepping into the light will just take you back to the physical world again. So I think that if I was presented with the light, I would say, no, I'm not going into the light. I think I will stay here in nothingness, just to observe first.
That's awesome.
That's what I thought.
That's perfect. Yeah, you said it right there. Actually, yeah. I didn't think about it. See how synchronistic this was. I didn't think about it that way. That's beautiful.
I think it's how it is. But yeah, that's funny, because a lot of people are saying, go into the light. But that means that you have to go back to the physical world. And I think that in my next life, I would prefer not to go back to the physical world right away. I need to check out the whatever I will end up in, soul realm or whatever, before I walk back, I think, after this life.
Well, I honestly don't know much of what's going on there. But I think I just want to stay, whatever I am and not go to the light as well.
Yeah, for sure. So for people who don't want to like go straight back to physical world, stay away from the light.
Yeah. Isn't that funny? We talked about this, and I heard about the light, at the end of the tunnel and whatever, when you're dying and whatnot.
Yeah.
And I didn't make the connection until now. That's a good one. I love it. But yeah, this guy was saying that when you see the light, people don't forget, like they forget to turn their heads or whatever, just look away from the light. And what they see is the universe.
Yeah.
People that do that, all they see is the universe and home and, people waiting for you, entities and whatnot. Whereas the light is just like your reincarnation trap process where you go into. And it makes sense because now you're stepping into the light, you're getting into the system of, planning your next reincarnation.
Yep.
Which, it should be, he calls it freedom, actually. Like turning away from the light is freedom.
Yeah.
Because you are going away from, the program or the system that makes you go back into reincarnation and karmic, work and all this stuff based on, whatever notions you brought back, which is kind of, I don't know. I guess it's contentious to talk about this, but maybe it doesn't provide a good analysis. I don't know. More research needs to be done in this area.
Yeah. Or just not, I don't think it's so much research actually, because I think it's very simple. Light is the physical world, dark is the non-physical world. And which world do you want to prefer whenever you go like on?
Exactly.
So. Is there any questions for anybody?
I'm checking.
Nice.
I have a lot. But
there's a lot?
Completely. Hold on. Let me get access to the full comments. What do we have? Oh my God, Nick, thank you so much, man. You've been typing a lot. There's this new Facebook interface, and I don't think I'm liking.
Oh, I don't have it yet.
Yeah, it made me. It's like switching. Like I'm trying to read Nick's comments, and they're all like, unless he's writing a lot of typing.
That's awesome. That's
strange
good.
Stuff. But I think there's only one that I can read. Because humans only can see and hear a part of the spectrum. The best eye is the eagle eye, more than 1 million cells per millimeter square. And humans only 200,000. Yeah, we're talking about the light there. Man, why is... Yeah, all the text is like messed up.
I can see the comment. But yeah, there's a lot of things with life after death and a death after life.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know Facebook and all kind of thing have shifted. It's the new times of everything is new. It's called the world order.
The new world order.
We're ready. Do you know what I thought about here the other day too? Like just to go back to the dark and the light talk. I was thinking about all these Hollywood movies. There is for example, Star Wars there's a lot of symbols, and I know that the director of I can't remember his name, but he also was an insider of something. And he is talking about the dark force as the most strongest force in the world, like in the universe. And all these dark forces in Hollywood film or movies is always portrayed as really good. Also, the Joker in Batman, they have these special skills, like these super skills of something very powerful that they try to defeat it, but often they can't defeat it and all that. But I think it's interesting that they portray dark force as something evil when it's actually something that is so powerful that you can take over the world with it. Have you ever thought about that?
Well, a while ago, I noticed that Hollywood started making the like the vision of the evil characters,
Mm-hmm.
uh, the characters that you would like. Like I remember, I think it was Batman, one of
Yeah.
the Batmans, whatever. That everybody loved the villain. And in fact, people have been. That's the thing. People have been loving the villain a lot more than the hero. Which,
Yeah.
in the end, whatever. Uh, but the question is like, what is the message that they were trying to get to people? And programming, of course, through this new notion, like loving the villains.
Yeah.
So those are the things that I'm interested in. Like, what's the new programming coming out of this new trend in Hollywood? Like what is it that they're trying to inject in the collective consciousness,
Yeah. I don't know. Evilness.
if there is?
Ego, which is Satan, which is what they want us to get stuck in, because villains often has a huge ego.
What is your definition of Satan? Like
I would
what is
say Satan is ego.
ego?
I think that, like, in the ancient text, like, Satan is the ego, and then when you let go of Satan or your ego, you have this death or rebirth of your higher self. So I portray Satan as the ego.
I
Because
like
that's
that.
how we've been feed with all these ego stimulating things, which people call satanic, and I prefer to use the word ego instead of satanic, because it is the ego. It is the ego that do all these horrible things to other people. So yeah, it's the alter ego.
I like that.
Yeah.
I
What
never
do you?
really got into the satanic stuff, like learning about it. But that makes sense.
Yeah,
The
because
ego.
people, they sometimes, I think they get confused in all of this, because also I saw Nick wrote something, everything is ancient. Everything that we look at right now, all the things that is being used, all the techniques, all the philosophers, all the gods, whatever, it's ancient knowledge. And it has nothing to do with, I don't know, Baphomet or Jesus or Satan or the devil. All these is like portraits of our development as species, our autonomy, our enlightenment, our mind, our heart. Like, it's all uh analogs for that, I believe, like the Christ consciousness. I mean,
Sure.
all these, it's codes, I will say. It's a trap.
Yeah. Huh. Well, I think I share this with you. I read once the story of a guy who got into satanic behaviors, right? Like he wasn't doing rituals and that level of Satanism, but he was explaining like how, I mean, the story is like he got into being satanic, and then he found Jesus, and he he got away from it. But the interesting part to me was how he described his life while um, he was worshiping Satan.
Yeah.
And what I think was amazing was how he said that there was a point where he realized that most, if not all, of his decisions were based upon manipulating others for his own gain, and he never felt fulfilled by it. Like he was never fulfilled by any action that even if he succeeded in manipulating other people and gaining what he wanted, he was never fulfilled. So it was a good way to describe the life of somebody who is egocentric
Mm-hmm.
and self-centered in everything that he does,
Yeah.
up until the point where he realized that he wasn't, but he kept doing it because there was something. I mean, the story is long, but the point is that it's funny because he says that he had a dream one day telling Satan, visit him in his dreams, and it said like, if you don't do something, you're gonna die. And he got all freaked out. He didn't do it, and he didn't die. And then he was like, well, Satan is a liar. And then he got into, like met somebody, went to church, found Jesus, the whole nine. And then he realized, like, I thought that was pretty cool the way he ended it, saying like, it's just, I realized that he was a liar, whereas, Jesus, never lied or whatever. But
Yeah.
the point was just like how people who are worshiping Satan, whether they do it consciously or not, they are just feeding their ego and being, manipulative, which, falls in perfectly with what we know about service to others or service to self. Whatever, you decide to do, it's the amount that you spend, because you know what, loving yourself and having some selfish thoughts and behaviors, it's completely normal and fine. In fact, I would think it's expected. Being completely loving and unconditional love 100% may not be, especially productive if you're in this society where you need to have some sense of selfishness to be aware, of certain things. Now, I'm not promoting this. People need to be who they are, but I'm just saying that it's not terrible. People sometimes, when they're in a spiritual path, they like whip themselves thinking like, oh my God, I was having a selfish thought. Like, who cares? You did it.
Yeah.
Good. Learn from it. Do you want to continue being that way? Just, that's the therapy we need to do, not to chastise ourselves because, we had a negative thought. But it just goes to say like how we are always making that choice, that one choice between us and others.
But the funny thing is that he say that he first worshipped Satan and then he found Jesus. Like, I mean, it's just the two person of himself. I mean, Satan, the bad whatever part of himself, the not developed part, not the conscious part, and then he became conscious, which is the Jesus part, which is actually him who's now like compassionate and forgiving and has spacious in his heart. Like, it's not Jesus he's found, is him. He found himself. And I think it's funny that people like is putting themselves in this third position of this worshiping, that instead of worshiping themselves, they worship Jesus or another God. I mean, and maybe that's why people, because that's not, I don't think it's selfish or anything to be selfish. I think it's super important to worship yourself and put yourself first in most situations, because if I don't put myself first, I can't expect anybody else to put myself first, because I hope you put yourself first. And if we all just put ourselves first in a more in that loving way, I mean, that's beautiful. But we are so busy of thinking of others. What do other things about us? How do other judge us? How do other people act? How do other people? We are so judgmental instead of just thinking of ourselves.
Yeah, I think, there's like with anything, there's misconceptions.
Yeah, for sure.
I think the best way to describe it is that your choice, to serve others or to serve yourself is to make decisions that will either benefit other people or will benefit you by using other people. That's the definition, of service. Service to self is just doing things for your own gain at the expense of others.
Yeah.
That's the true definition of a selfish behavior.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to use you for all my benefits, and when I don't need you, I don't care, like, Simone, you can ask anything and I'll tell you no, because I see no benefit there.
Yeah.
That's what is called the selfish path. That's different. Loving yourself is, it's just part of that. And the other thing is the opposite, like thinking that, everything that you do for others, it's a good thing. It doesn't, it really has to do with your, the amount of value that you're putting in. Only you know it. Like you said, it's the worship of yourself as the powerful being that you are that brings about, that that greatness in you to not only help yourself understand your reality and who you are, but also help others.
Yeah.
So it's not about just doing random things for others and being, there. It's just like consciously doing. You know what? This is the thing. A lot of people do it subconsciously or unconsciously. They just do it.
Yeah.
And to them it's just natural. When you say like you admire people like this, and it's funny because you see them in their faces when you tell them like, wow, you've been doing, and they're like, yeah, it's like normal for me. But for you, who it's consciously seeking this stuff.
Yeah.
It's very, very obvious, but to them it's not. So, it's misconceptions of trying maybe too hard, to visualize something where all you need to do. In the end, this is not so complicated. The problem is that we have created too much complexity around the illusion that we live in. That's the problem. But ourselves, very simple. We just simply are.
Yes.
If we can tap into who we truly are inside, which is just, I mean, it sounds funny just to say it, but it's true. If we can just tap into being who we truly are, which is, I mean, it's by default the natural energy that flows through us. But
yeah,
again, like I said, the complexity of the ego and everything that has been conditioned, on us, it's very strong. So we are deconditioning ourselves just to be ourselves, basically.
Exactly. It's true. It's true.
I love it. Yeah. I just love the fact that we don't seem to know and live who we really are, just because and that's another thing. There's a false sense of humbleness that pervades a lot of us, because we were also told in society that we are not enough. So whenever whenever possible, that something shines, from us, and people see it, and we hear it, right, from people, it's like, no, I'm not that person. I'm not like that. Oh, I'm not that good. That's a false sense of humility. You need to accept, and say thank you. That's just who I am. It's no arrogance, not being cocky. And I'm guilty of that. I'm guilty of, taking those compliments as, maybe I'm not that good. I'm getting better though, without being arrogant, because that's the thing. We think we're being arrogant, but we're not.
Not at all. Not at all. But it is true. This is this not enough mentality. Like we have this feeling that, but it's because we're being feeding with an illusion where it is constantly confirming us and affirming us that we are not enough. I mean, my iPhone is new, but it's not new. I mean, because they just made a new one. So again, I'm not enough. I don't have the smartest gear. I mean, my computer is also new, but it's not new because they just made a new one. I mean, we are constantly being fed with confirmation that we're not enough, or from the TV or whatever, instead of just like know that we are enough and receive, like, and not be, arrogant about it. And not think that we are arrogant when we receive and think that we are enough.
What do you think is the most common, I'm not enough or unworthiness feeling out there right now? Condition, of course.
Like the most like the feeling.
Is it the material stuff, you think, or the perception of self?
Yeah, I think it's the perception of self. This because there is a lot of meaningless in our society, so people lack a sense of meaning and purpose, and I think that's like they feel like zero. I think that's the main feeling right now, or have been for a long time, that you don't feel you do enough, you don't feel you are enough, like your status is never enough.
Who you
Because
are.
yeah, I think it's status. I mean, people want to be famous and a lot of followers and likes and all that. And if you don't have enough, you're just not enough. And I think that that's like the main thing, that people don't feel that they are seen.
It's a coping mechanism to a degree, like wanting to have a big following and all this stuff.
Yeah.
I was a social hermit for a long time, social media hermit. And it was this year where when I activated, when we met actually,
Yeah.
that's when I started, activating everything. So I had the accounts, but I never used them. And, that's a long story why, but the point is that I started seeing this thirst or this need, for having attention. And see, I asked you that question because oftentimes we hear that it's the material stuff, right? And yeah, we can probably associate, the perception of self with materialism.
Yeah.
But I feel like before, like in, um, 10 years ago, 15, 20 years ago, it used to be more centered around the materialism stuff, like the things that you have, how did that made you feel, the
Yeah.
things you can accomplish, with those material stuff, like if you had a car or whatever.
Yeah.
And yeah, your status, that's never changed. Then it turned into this, like the attention, like who are you?
Yeah.
Do you have an Instagram? How many
Mhm.
followers do you have? Oh, you're nobody.
Yeah.
And I'm so grateful that I didn't live through that by being a social hermit, and I never cared about a follower, or a following, base or whatever, because it really can get into like a downward spiral for people,
Yeah.
you know.
It can.
And to me, the thing is that, and tell me if this resonates with you. People start looking for this following, which, whatever, for whatever reason they do it. They're trying to fill a hole of attention that they didn't get. And when their perception changes in some regard, and this following no longer resonates with them, they are devastated,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
Or if something in their life changes and they realize that synthetic following, or I'm not even going to attribute it to the following, but rather to the notion, the notion that you have support there, the notion that that is who you are.
Yeah.
And they realize it's devastating.
Yeah.
It's again, it's just, I guess it's a virtual materialism kind of stuff. And that's what I think a lot of people are suffering right now from, being like trying really hard to be that, that online person. You know what I mean? Even if they're not doing, anything public, but
Yeah.
just being that online persona.
But yeah, I mean, I think it's like in general, I think it is the concept of feeling seen, the feeling of wanting to be seen.
Mm.
And then you count, like I can tell just before we cut off here, I have been like in my teenage years, I had a really fun talk with my earlier psychotherapist the other day, and she was like, Simona, when you first sat in that chair, you wanted to be famous. You wanted to reach the stars and you wanted everybody to know who you are. And I was like, yeah, that's true. And I was curious about why I was like that. And I just had that need for somebody to see me, somebody to recognize me, and somebody knowing my name. And I don't know, I think it's because we have this lack of self-love, and because we have this lack of, we can't see ourselves, or we don't see ourselves because we weren't taught in seeing ourselves. So we seek this external I don't know, approval of everybody else. And we do that online and through, being famous, reality program, especially. I mean, it's just destroyed young people trying to seek attention throughout another way that will further out destroy them.
Yeah, agreed.
I can only say this because I've been through it. So I am allowed to say that will destroy you. This 50 minutes of fame or this huge following or whatever, it will destroy you if you don't love yourself. How to expect anybody else to love you? It's so, I don't know, touche, but it's still so true.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's the essence.
Yeah.
That's what really matters, is the essence.
Yeah.
All right. To wrap it up, I want to say something that I know it's going to make you smile and you're going to like it. And this is a message for anybody listening. Seek the beauty in everything.
Yes.
We're taught to see. I told you we were going to smile, because we're taught to seek, love, right? That you have to see the love in everything, and it's hard to see love, when you have so many biases. However, beauty is something that you can look, no matter how bad it is, you can see the beauty in something, anything, whatever, your ideas might be of evil or, horrific stuff. There's always a beauty in the contrast that they perceive or they project. In beauty is love. So that's what I would say to people. That's my my finishing statement. And man, I want to say thank you to Nick, because he did comment a lot. He was with us for the whole hour.
Awesome.
I'm sorry that my Facebook sucks, because they decided I didn't even get an option. As soon as I got into Facebook, it just gave me this option. I see just random characters in some, and I can read some of the comments. But thank you, Nick. Nick, much love to you, brother.
Awesome. Should I wrap it up too with a sentence?
Please.
I really support your sentence, because we have talked a lot about this. Beauty is everything, because it's not polarized, and it can't be polarized. It just is. So I really support that statement. Especially in darkness, in light, whatever, always seek beauty, because it's just there. You can't change it.
Yeah. And if you can't see the beauty, you have to change your perspective somehow. And it's a game.
Go into the dark, as I said, because the dark is good.
I like that. I miss this. All right.
Me too.
Are we done?
We're done. I will see you next Friday.
Yes, next Friday.
Ciao.
Ciao.